Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's early episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I've got something kind of special in store for you all. I'm just getting things set up on this end and waiting for a friend of mine who's going to be joining me to help out with this particular experiment, as it were. Tonight, I think we got something kind of cool and special going on for you. We are going to try to talk to the dead. Although I should be clear, and I'm not going to be belaboring this point. I'm going to mention this early on, and then I'm going to mention this at the end, because I don't want to deceive people and think that I am doing something I can't do. This is not an actual seance. Okay, let's clear that up right now. This is a demonstration of techniques that were used during actual Victorian era seances. I'm not going to be, which is to say, this is a magic act. I'm not going to be revealing how I do what I'm about to do. That isn't because I am really psychic and want to hide that from you all. That's because I'm a magician, and magicians have a code of ethics, a big part of which is you don't reveal how a trick is done. Regardless, hopefully this should be kind of interesting. This has been a project I have been working on for years now. I'm very proud to finally be able to do at least a simple version of it. There's a much better version that in the long term I should be able to do, where I could do this in person with a group of people sitting around the table, people holding each of my hands, so that I can't do something easy. So it's very obvious I'm not using my hands. Hey, Teresa Hall, Grove City Pagan. I'm doing wonderful. That reminds me, I should address where I've been of late. People might be wondering. I want to apologize for the fact that I haven't been on. Let's see, 2 weeks ago, I had to work overnight. Or correction, in fact, I had to work a double. I had to go in at 6 and then work till 6, so 12 hours. And obviously I wasn't available to work to do the stream, because I was doing training for a new job that I just started. It's more money and it's a good job, but like I said, I had to go in and do training for it. I would have done it last week, but my laptop was getting repaired. So that is where I have been. I have not been eaten by a big giant monster or by a furry creature that goes meow meow or anything like that. Just bear with me a second. I need to share links and then we'll get started. It's one. Two. One more share and we're good to go. Three. Okay. I am just about ready to go. I think my friend, unfortunately, is still having whatever last minute issues came up. So, like I said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I am, as always, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist in the Paranormal Encyclopedia. Now, a very long time ago, let me do a little intro to what's going on, partly, hopefully, for interest, and partly it'll give my friend time to join us. But many years ago, I first saw psychic John Edwards on television. And of course, that caused a big boom in the whole psychic craze. We saw Sylvia Brown, James Von Prague, Teresa Caputo, the Long Island Medium, the show Medium, Ghost Whisperer, all these other shows where people play to talk to the dead, either real, like most of the ones I mentioned, or like, Ghost Whisperer, Medium, or Psych, which itself is a fascinating study, where it was fictional. There's something that always bothered me about these. In the Victorian period, when somebody tried to do a seance, it was interesting. objects would move. The table would bounce around. More would happen instead of. Is anyone listening? Is anyone here know someone who died named Michael? Mike M. A father figure, maybe an uncle, grandfather. This is a really boring way to do a seance. It's a technique called cold reading. There's a good channel called Holy Kool-Aid that has a bunch of videos about that if you're interested in finding out the details of what cold reading is. But it's not really relevant tonight. But what always bothered me about this is it's boring. It's not very. It's playing a statistical law of averages and then making note of the times it sounds in the ballpark, and ignoring the times that you're just completely wrong. And like I said, the Victorian style of doing a seance is much more interesting in my opinion, much more fun in my opinion. If I'm going to give somebody money to claim to talk to dead people, I'd rather see a spectacle. So for many years, I've been trying to figure out how to, as a magician, which is how they did in the Victorian period, I've been trying to figure out how to recreate that experience. To give people something more interesting than a bunch of vague, I'm getting letters. Thankfully, funny enough for the shutdown, I finally managed to put together the beginnings of what I need to do this. Today is my birthday. If anyone didn't know, I am now 44. Originally, I wanted to do this in person, gather a bunch of friends, sit around my dining room table, join hands just like a traditional seance, and away we go. Unfortunately, Corona is still a thing. People very close to me have recently been diagnosed. I don't want to take that risk. So I decided to do it online. Originally, the plan was to get a bunch of friends together, all have them hop online, interact, they can ask questions, bell we'll get to the bell. We'll answer them, I'll ask. But only one person, two people were interested in that. One is my sister. I didn't really want to involve my sister because my nephews who are very young and it just doesn't seem appropriate. And another friend of mine who's had a last minute emergency come up, who's trying to wrap things up so she can join us, which is also partly why I'm sitting here talking to you about all of this instead of just getting on with it. And thank you, Teresa. I appreciate the happy birthday. But again, this should be relatively interesting. This should be kind of fun. I'm going to start with something you may have seen before. Anyone who has seen the magic act I did during Wrath of Khan will have seen this particular effect. Then I have something new for you that I think you'll find pretty interesting, which is going to be the bulk of the remaining time. And this is something that was a little bit of effort and more than a little bit of money to get. Actually, both of these were more than a little bit to get. So let's start with the less dramatic. We have a slate, chalkboard slate, just like you'd get, when you're a kid, and you write on it to give an answer to your teacher. We have two of them. In fact, as you can see, blank. There's nothing on them. One, two. We're going to put them together. Now, we want the spirit to write something on the slates. So we're going to need to take a piece of chalk, add it to the mix. If there are any spirits here, give us a sign on this chalkboard. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I would take this as a good sign that this is going to work. But chalkboard slates are a relatively common method for this kind of thing. I've seen them even back when I was a kid. Wanted to do something a little more interesting. I'll ask. Stupid thing that just worked. Here's oh. Okay, hopefully this is working now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully I haven't lost everybody. I apologize for the fact the internet just seems to hate me, let's be honest. So, like I said, the centerpiece of what I'm about to attempt is this bell. Very ancient, traditional way of contacting spirits. Or, okay, well, it really ancient in the sense it goes back to the Victorian era. Where you would set up a bell like this, where it hangs freely. It's not sitting on the ground. It's not in a position where I'd have to pick it up to ring it. It's suspended. It's able to swing back and forth. If you're wondering, in case you think this is some sort of microphone or type thing, nope, it's got a clanger right there. The theory is that we'll ask a question, and the bell will ring. If all goes according to plan, you'll not only will you hear the bell ring, you'll see the bell move back and forth. If this works, we'll set up a simple system, 1 ring for yes, 2 rings for no, that kind of thing. And we'll see what happens. So let's all focus our energies. Not really, because again, and try to reach the spirit world. If there are any spirits here, ring the bell. If there are any spirits here, ring the bell once. Did everybody hear that? Again, if there's a spirit present, ring the bell 1 time. Good. If you would like to communicate with us, ring the bell 1 time for yes, or 2 times for no. I think we got a live one, relatively speaking. So in a traditional Victorian seance, you'd sit around the table, hands joined, and ask a series of questions. And the bell would ring. Once for yes, twice for no. Let's ask it a question that should be a no, just to make sure it understands how to give us a no. Are you a living human being right now? Let's make it a little harder. If you're going to give us a yes, don't give us 1 ring, give us 3 for the next question. Are you the spirit of a person? Are you a person who died as opposed to some other type of spirit? Remember, spirit 3 times is a yes this time, not 1. Wait, are you not a human spirit? There we go. Now, sometimes you get a spirit who's hesitant, who doesn't want to answer questions. So you might sit, because again, this would be in the dark usually. This is a little different. You get to see it in broad daylight. You get to see the bell. You get to see that the bell is moving. There's no question here that what's going on is that the bell is moving and ringing. It's not that I've got a bell in my pocket and I'm making it ring and you can't tell because it's pitch black. It's not some other obvious thing. And again, you can see my hands. You can see there's a thing in my hands. I'm not holding some sort of remote control that I manipulate every time the bell rings, am I? I could do this handcuffed. I could do this with this person on either side of me holding my hands down. But the bell will ring. Another one that would often be done, because an obvious way to do this would have been to attach a string to the clanger and then just pull it with your toe. But as you can see, there's no string, is there? But to get around that, they might put a dome over it or something of that sort. I don't have a dome, unfortunately. So we got to make do with what we have. So, okay, let's have a little fun with this. Since my friend still hasn't joined us, and I don't want to be the only one sitting here asking questions all night. Does anybody have a question? Anyone in the chat? I can see I've got 3 live viewers. Do any of you want to ask the spirits a question and see if we can get them to ring the bell and give us an answer? I think for the simplicity's sake, because otherwise we're going to be sitting around and going, is that 1 or 2 all night? 1 ring for yes, 2 rings for no. Come on. Teresa, somebody in the chat, somebody's got to have a question. Okay, you guys think of a question I'm going to ask the one we all really want to know more than any other question. The deep, burning riddle of the ages. Spirits, is Elvis really dead? He's not dead. Have you seen him lately? Is it true he's no longer making music? Three might in this case mean that it's an uncertain question. Is it true that he's living in a retirement community in Texas with John F. Kennedy and hunting mummies? For those of you who don't know, that's a reference to a movie called Bubba Hotep, starring one of the greatest actors of all time, Bruce Campbell. Where, yes, he is hunting a mummy that drains life force out of people, with JFK, who's in a wheelchair in black. It makes some sense. I'd say it makes more sense if you watch the movie, but it really doesn't. So Teresa has a question. Can you visit the living anytime you want? Come on. Come on, Spirit. Do you want to give us an answer? Can you visit the living anytime you want? It's a problem with doing the 1 ring. It's like, you don't know if they're going to do a second. Are you planning on visiting anyone in the audience tonight? Are you a good spirit? Somebody's in for an interesting evening. Remember how to find me. Are you the spirit of anyone famous? Okay, that was a little more lively than we've been getting. Are the spirit, if you're out to bother someone tonight, are you the spirit of a serial killer? Somebody's in for a very interesting evening tonight. Teresa Hall, Gulf City Pagan, wants to know, what time should she expect your arrival tonight? Do it in dings, if you would. So that would be 3. Yes. Are you sure you're a human spirit? 3 is not a good number. Okay, so maybe it isn't. But we could keep going like this and asking questions. If anyone else has, Teresa, if you have any other questions, and I do see I have supposedly 3 viewers at the moment. If anyone else has a question they would like to ask, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I am probably going to wrap this up. I think listening to a bell ring for an hour is going to get relatively repetitive, and I'll talk a little bit about spiritualism and its history. But we can, or maybe I'll just leave it go for the moment and talk a little and see if anything happens. So the spiritualist movement started in the 1840s in New York, actually. Hydesdale, New York. It's the middle of nowhere, basically. It's not even close to New York City. In a farmhouse with 2 sisters, Kate and Maggie Fox. Teresa says, Papa Like Bo will be here too, Spirit. I don't think it likes that answer. But these 2 girls and their mother and their father, because they lived at home, would hear this horrible banging at night. Supposedly, at times, it was so bad it would knock things off shelves. The ground would shake. Neighbors came, priests came, reporters came, scientists came, from all over, and they could hear this banging. And they were all trying to make sense of it. Over time, they developed a code with the spirit, much like we're doing now. It was 2 knocks for a yes, 3 knocks for a no. They also worked out an alphabet with ringing for various letters, or knocking, I should say, for various letters. Can you imagine how tedious that had to be, especially because it called its name Mr. Scratch? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to whatever letter S, then waiting and making sure that it's done, so you know that's the letter it meant. Then having to go 1, 2, 3, that's C, on and on and on and on and on to get through the letters of the alphabet. But they eventually would be taken all over the world doing these demonstrations and amaze people. People didn't understand what was going on. No, they made money at it because obviously people thought eventually this idea they were talking to the dead develops. Other people would claim to speak to them. Excuse me a moment. Thank you, dear. A little breath spray for my cracking throat. But other people would start to claim to contact the dead as well. They'd have different methods. Again, Kate and Maggie Fox, and eventually their sister Lee got involved. Would do it through knocking. Others would use other methods, like the bell. As time went on, around the 1880s, Kate started to have a change of heart because she was actually converted to Roman Catholicism. She got married. She felt very guilty about what she was doing. She gathered a group of reporters in London and offered a performance of her alleged ability to contact spirits. And here's what was revealed. This was already publicly revealed by the person who did it, so I don't feel the same qualms about telling you this as I would about, for example, telling you about how the belt works. Turns out that it started out as a prank on mom. They tied an apple to a string to their finger, and then in the dark or under the covers, they would bang it against the floor. Or they would keep a block of wood and bang it against that. They eventually learned a trick that really only very young children can learn. But if you learn it young, you can do it for the rest of your life. Which was the ability to move their foot in such a way that you couldn't tell that they were moving their foot. The muscles didn't twitch, it didn't seem obvious. And you could produce a series of raps on the floor. Just by the way you could manipulate your toes and your heel. This is how they fooled a lot of otherwise very intelligent, competent people. The spiritualist movement as a whole railed against this whole thing. They insisted that no, the Fox sisters may have been fakes, but they were legitimate. The Fox sisters themselves would later recant their confession. The reasons for this seems to have been money, as in they were running out of it, and they thought that reconnecting and claiming to be mediums again was the best way to fix that. But pretty much their career ended with that moment on that stage. Nobody took them seriously anymore. It didn't stop the spiritualist movement, which obviously continues even today. It's just gotten a lot less interesting, in my personal opinion. But it would go through ebbs and flows, and we see this to some extent even today. It got less interesting as the 19th century wore on. When it got its first, where it really got its first kickoff wasn't so much the Fox sisters. They introduced the idea. It was the Civil War, and just after the Civil War, people would lose loved ones in battle and won. They want closure. They wanted a chance to say goodbye, and mediums gave them a way to do this. This is why, again, it spiked during and after World War I, and to some extent during and after the Second World War. It gave people the sense that even when they lost somebody, they were really still here. Now, and mediums today very much bank on this idea that they are giving people hope that it doesn't all just end meaninglessly. This is unethical. Again, what I've done tonight is a magic trick. I can make this bell ring once, twice, 3 times. If I really want to, I can just make it keep ringing. There's no spirit involved. I am not going to tell you how I did it because that's a violation of the Magician's Code. And there's good reasons why that's a violation of the Magician's Code, let me add. But while I want to continue to do this and probably expand it out a little and turn this into maybe an actual magic act I do for folks, I want it always to be clear that what's going on is a magic act. I do not have psychic powers. I cannot talk to them. I'm not saying that spirits don't exist. Obviously, this entire channel's point wouldn't work if I didn't believe spirits existed. I'm not even saying people cannot communicate with them. What I'm saying is you need to think about why things happen the way they happen. And you need to ask yourself, is what's really going on paranormal? Especially when somebody claims to have paranormal powers. Doubly so when somebody wants money to do their paranormal power for you. There are a lot of predators out there that are more than happy to take your money in return for a magic trick. That's not right. This is and this is, in my opinion, different. At the beginning of tonight, I told you that this is a magic trick. I'm telling you now, it's a magic trick. I am not trying to. At no point tonight, I talked about Elvis. I never talked about anybody's loved ones. I never tried to talk about anybody's grandpa, for example, or father, or anyone else they knew who had died. Because I don't want to meddle with that. I don't want to insert my trick into your memories of somebody you care about. That's not right. And again, modern mediums, and this is the thing that drives me nuts about modern mediums. This wasn't free. I mean, $300-400 between the two props. Not to mention the pain in the rear end of getting the things I needed on top of that. But this wasn't especially challenging to set up. This wasn't especially challenging to learn. It's not challenging at all to make that bell ring. And I would think that sitting around a table, hand to hand to hand to hand, where you can put your hand in my palm, because some people will think, oh, he's got a latex hidden palm thing and you just can't see it. Well, if you put your hand like this against mine, oh, well, yeah, I guess he doesn't have that. It gives you that option. It gives you that extra moment. And people used to do this. Harry Houdini used to do this as one of his magic acts. In fact, even before he became the famous debunker of the spiritualist movement, early in his career, he would put on seances for people. And he stopped doing that. He became bothered by that. And it's one of the reasons he later did the debunking that he did, because he realized the effect it had on people. But still, maybe it's me, but I think this is a more fun way to do it than I'm getting Mary. Who do you know whose name is Mary? I guarantee, if not one of the 4 people currently listening to me, at least one person someday who is reading the comments is going to go, oh, my mother, my sister, my aunt, somebody who died, his name Mary. It's not an uncommon name. I guarantee that of the 4, I can guarantee that somebody in the chat of the 4 people knows someone close to them that's name is Michael. Maybe not dead, but you definitely, one or more of you, most likely more of you, know someone named Michael. How do I know that? Michael and John are the 2 most common names in the English language in the last 100 years. It's not magic powers. It's statistical odds. And people are smarter than they think. What I would suggest is that if you're a believer in psychics, the next time you watch James Van Prague or Teresa Caputo or any of the other ones, have a piece of paper and a pencil handy. Make 2 columns. Hits, misses. Every time they say something, and the person goes, yeah, that's right, mark it as a hit. Every time they say something, the person looks at them blankly, or this is something or John Edwards does that drives me batty. They tell them, yeah, you do. You tell them they're wrong, that they know people they say they don't know. And argue with people. There's a great infamous example with the late Sylvia Brown when she was on the Mental Williams show, where she was asked, what happened to my boyfriend? We never found out how he died. He's in water. He drowned. He's in water. And the woman just looks at her dumbfounded, like, he was a firefighter. He was at 9/11. And you're right, Teresa. You're absolutely right, Teresa. Cold readers are fishing. They will make shit up. And often the really arrogant ones, Edwards, Browns, and many of the others, will double down rather than admit they might be wrong. Like Sylvia Brown just kept insisting that her boyfriend, the firefighter who died in 9/11, died in water. How the hell? I mean, John Edwards many times has insisted that people are related to someone by some name that they'd never heard of, and they just forgot. He calls it psychic amnesia, and tells people to bring complex family trees with them to readings. And think about that as well. If you make an entire family tree going back a few generations, I'm betting you're going to have people on there that you've never met. So yeah, if you don't know a name and you check it, maybe you're related to So if you go back far enough, it's not surprising if and it's a common enough name. It's not going to be surprising you're related to somebody by that name. Maybe it's your great great grandfather twice removed. But again, they're making that also particularly drives me nuts. They're making you do the work. It's lazy. It's sloppy. They're doing a magic act, not even doing it well. There's nothing wrong with cold reading. It's used for a number, it's used by magicians like myself. It's used by psychologists and psychiatrists. It's used by salesmen. It's less honorably used by con men, both the psychic and non-psychic varieties. It's a useful psychological technique, but that's all it is. If you want to see a psychic, you want to see somebody who's going to do some weird power thing, go see a magician. There are people in this world, in my opinion, that do genuinely have psychic abilities. I've met a few over the years. Most of them, it's not a light switch. They can't flick it on and off. It happens when it happens. And the ones I've met that I thought ever had something never took any money, didn't take money for it, didn't advertise, didn't claim, oh, I have this amazing power. They do it from time to time to try to help people. And they freely tell you, what, sometimes I'm just wrong. If you're going to pay money to be entertained, go see a magician, go see a musician, go see a comedian, go do something like that. Or if you really want to, go see a psychic, but at least understand that you're paying to be entertained. You're not paying for an experience with the dead. People can ask, and it is a fair enough question, and that deserves a proper answer. What separates me from the Sylvia Browns and John Edwards? Well, there's I don't have any more concrete evidence than they do that what I do is legitimate. If I could prove that spirits actually exist, I wouldn't be sitting here chatting with you guys. I love you all, but let's be honest. I'd be in Switzerland collecting my Nobel Prize, probably at the very least in physics, and likely 2 or 3 more on top of it. Probably even Nobel Peace Prize, because I would have just proven that there's life after death. That's the sort of thing that would change the world. I'm not claiming I can do it. Don't trust people who say they can do it. All fan. But here's the other thing. If you wanted a reading from Sylvia Brown, it was over $1,000 to talk to her on the phone. If you want an investigation from me, it's not going to cost you. The only thing it might cost you is if I have to drive 6 hours, you're going to pay me gas money. I'm sorry, I can't afford to drive 6 hours, let alone 12 hours, because I have to drive back. And if I don't think there's something in your house, I'll tell you I don't think there's something in your house. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa says morals and ethics separate me. I would like to think so. Certainly with something like this, because again, I presented as an interesting diversion. I just presented as what Penn and Teller do, what David Copperfield does, what magicians do. It's not magic. It's not supernatural powers. It's not talking to the dead. I will never claim that I have. Even if I get EVP, I'm not going to claim that I've talked to your uncle or your dead, your dead mother or something like that, because I don't bloody know. It might, there's a whole series of possibilities, some of which are natural, some of which are not. But for all I know, I got tapped into a ham radio operator, and getting dumb luck, or I'm getting a malevolent spirit that's claiming to be that person. And often enough, when I do EVP, and I've done EVP on the show, I get nothing. It's not reliable enough, and I can't be certain enough of what I'm communicating with to definitively tell you one way or another. I wish I could. Again, I could use the money and the prestige that comes with winning the Nobel Prize, but I don't think it's ever going to happen for me. Which isn't to say I don't think that we're never going to be able to prove the existence of spirits. I think one day we probably will. I think science will eventually catch up, and we'll have concrete evidence. I just don't think it exists yet. But what I would do, aside from the fact I want you to be entertained, and I want this to encourage you to think a little skeptically. The other thing I want you to realize is just how cool things. This I think is there is a reality of how cool that you can do certain things with a little bit of ingenuity. There's all sorts of cool things out there that don't require invocation of magical powers. No disrespect to my friends that are magicians or pagans or occultists who do magical things, but those of us who live in the ordinary world, like myself, I'm not neither psychic nor a practitioner of occult magic. We can do other cool, there are other interesting things you can do. There are ways to make it seem like you have powers you don't really have. I think I'm going to be wrapping this up soon. It is, after all, my birthday once again. I want to go enjoy myself, spend a little time with my sweetie. I'm hoping you guys enjoy this. We will be back, and barring more unforeseen events, we will be back next week. Spirit, do you think we'll be back next week, or do you think we'll have another problem? I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. If you enjoy what I do, if you want to support what I do, I also would encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe. None of these things cost you a penny, but they will help me out. I am trying very hard to make that climb to finally hit the 1,000 subscribers, and let's say 4,000 watch minutes. I need so that I can be a paid YouTuber. Trying to get a little bit of ad revenue out of all of this. That would be wonderful. But at the moment, I continue to do this because I enjoy doing this, not because I'm in it for the money. The money would just be a nice bonus. The other two things that I would ask is, if you have a couple of bucks, you might consider donating to my Patreon. The link will be in the description. The other thing you might consider better, maybe arguably better than my Patreon, Facebook has a very common thing they do every year, or all the time, I should say, not just every year, but for people's birthdays where you can promote a charity. I'm doing that this year. The charity I've particularly chosen to support is the Suicide Prevention Hotline. I lost my best friend to suicide. It's a big deal to me. If you guys donate some money to the prevention hotline, if you don't have money to donate, make sure to post the phone number to your Facebook once in a while, or your Instagram or your Twitter or whatever, because the reality of that suicide is real. Suicide is a horrible thing, and we should be trying to do what we can to help people in this kind of crisis. And yes, Teresa quite accurately says it is easy to use the tools of magic to fool people. And that is what magic is. I mean, magic is all, as a magician, I step forward and say, "Hi, I'm a magician. I'm about to lie to you." But I don't do that on an investigation because I'm more than just a magician. But if I'm going to do a magic act, I'm going to tell you I'm doing a magic act. And that is what differentiates a magician from a con man. Because con men use the exact same tricks we do, but they don't tell you, they're not upfront about what they're doing. Again, hopefully you all enjoyed that. This is going to do it for tonight. I will see you all next week when I think I'm finally going, unless some other thing comes up, but next week the plan is to finally start talking about Frankenstein, like I've promised several times. Spirit, do you think we're going to talk about Frankenstein? I don't think it knows. Last question, and the most important. Should people donate to my Patreon? That's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank you all for joining me. This has been a lot of fun for me. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Teresa seems to be doing clap emojis, so I'm assuming she enjoyed it. And one person's really enough for me. Hopefully more people will have enjoyed this, but if not, I can live with that. That's going to do it for tonight. Remember to tune in next week. Until then, this is Kevin Mears, demonologist and paranormal investigator, and the Paranormal Encyclopedia saying good night and God bless.